open this up right quick. I'm gonna show y'all something. Cause that's what the brother think. That's what he thinking. He over there thinking that. Let's see what these white boys is thinking. Where my playlist at? Matter of fact, we just gonna go to history. These white boys ain't thinking what these Negroes is thinking. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to show y'all right quick. Watch this shit. These white boys they think something different. You know?
Symbol. The statue of Jefferson Davis facing us every day right there at the University of Texas. Students walk back and forth, didn't think a thing about it. But suddenly the whole nation is in an uproar. We've got to get rid of these statues. We've got to get rid of all vestiges of the Confederacy. So they moved this statue to a museum. They said it's more worthy to be in a museum than out in the public. I guess that's so they could hide it from the public. In Memphis, Tennessee, they actually uprooted and moved the graves of famous Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest and his entire family. Yeah, the whole family, the general, he was a Confederate war general, and his entire family were moved. The people of Memphis said, we don't want to see these statues of the Confederate general anymore. Get them out. So they had the memorial there, and the bodies actually were taken up and moved out of town. Now, Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest, I used to kid my students of my cadets, you might call them, or they were officer candidates, and I was their instructor. And I had a block of instruction called Principles of War. And I would tell them about various famous generals, and one of them, of course, was Nathan Bedford Forrest, and I gave him credit for one of the principles of war, which was get there the first with the most. Of course, he said it different. He said, you got to get there the fustest with the mostest. I guess, he spoke in sort of a Southern accent back then. You got to get there the fustest with the mostest, said John.
That's how black people talk right now, ain't it? The first is with the mostest. So this how he see the Civil War. You know what I'm saying? So I want you to see how the black people see it, and then I want you to see how the white people see it. Now let's keep going now, because the white boys, they really got their own fucking juice going. This is what they think. This is what they know is going on.
This period. But Nathan Bedford Forrest, seeing the people of the South ravaged, losing their homes to the tax collector's office and so forth, he and another Confederate general, this Albert Pike, started a little group right there in Memphis, that area. A little group of generals got together, Pike and Forrest being the chief, and they founded the Ku Klux Klan. Now, Forrest was made the Imperial Wizard. You have all these weird names in the Ku Klux Klan, Yeah, he was made the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. But the group made Albert Pike the Grand Dragon. Yeah, he was the Grand Dragon. A name which, by the way, I find very fitting for this man who was not at all a Christian. I want to tell you a little bit about Pike, because you see, in studying the life and the career in the Freemason fraternity of Albert Pike, you're going to understand just where we're at today. You may say, oh, Tex, you're talking about ancient history. No.
No.
The same forces that were commanded by Albert Pike, who just, right at the time, I think it was in 1859, had become the sovereign grand commander of Scottish Rite Freemasonry.
1859, this white boy become the boss of the Scottish Free Rite of Masonry. Now, it ain't no war yet. It's 1859. The war don't supposedly start to 1861. But in 1860, we know that the Arkansas kicked out all the black people, though. We know that, though. We ain't gonna talk about that right now, but we know that. Let's go.
That was basically the largest and most powerful Masonic group in the whole world. Now, there is a northern jurisdiction and a southern jurisdiction.
Listen.
But the northern jurisdiction, which was set up during the Civil War, actually answers to the southern jurisdiction.
Whoa.
So Albert Pike became the world famous Freemason.
Let's not glide past that. Let's not glide past that. I want you to know what they know. He said the southern district is the boss. The northern district is the flunkies. Is that what he just said? Come on now. That's what he just said.
That were commanded by Albert Pike, who just, right at the time, I think it was in 1859, had become the sovereign grand commander of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. That was basically the largest and most powerful Masonic group in the whole world. Now, there is a northern jurisdiction and a southern jurisdiction. But the northern jurisdiction, which was set up during the Civil War, actually answers to the southern jurisdiction. So Albert Pike became the world famous.
Let's go deeper than that, because y'all know y'all playing with the God. Now. Y'all know y'all playing with me. I'm going to put up another window here. I know y'all playing with me, so I'm going to give you all the sauce. I'm going to give you all the juice. So we're going to get back to the brother real quick. Let's let the brother talk real quick, because he's going to tell you the black side. Let's talk about the black side.
Membership explodes exponentially. So this was something that I wanted to look at. Again, I just wanted to look at, who are these Prince Hall Masons? This
Now,
is 66, and
again, the black boy saying that the black people didn't join the Masons until after the Civil War. Now, listen to this again.
And that started to play into my thinking. I said, wow, after 1865, after the Emancipation Proclamation, you start having all these Prince Hall Grand Lodges popping up between 1866 and 1875. The fraternity membership explodes exponentially. So this was something that
you see, so now the shit explodes after the Civil War, but he just told you that the South already was winning. But he said Prince Hall lodges start popping up. He specifically said Prince Hall lodges. He didn't say nothing about Masonry. So we talking about agents now. You see what I'm saying? We ain't talking about some shit that niggas already had. We talking about agents and niggas popping up some new shit. Some Prince Hall shit from Massachusetts, right? Where Prince Hall from? Massachusetts. Let's hit this one more time because I'm about to get deep.
1865, after the Emancipation Proclamation, you start having all these Prince Hall Grand Lodges popping up between 1866 and 1875. The fraternity membership explodes.
Prince Hall.
So this was something that I wanted to look at. Again, I just wanted to look at, who are these Prince Hall Masons? This is actually a lithograph,
who are these
actually
Prince Hall Masons?
By the way, please support the African American Civil War Museum. They've been a great partner to us in putting this program together. And let's give them a round of applause.
Who are these Prince Hall Masons? Fuck the round of applause.
First saw this out here, as a matter of fact. It's actually over there in the back corner by the restroom, so please check it out on your way out. But if you look right here on the left-hand side there, you'll see all these different images that are related to the emancipation of black people and all the different factors that played into it. So we see the Holy Bible, starting to say that slavery was unjust, it was against God's law. At the very tip of the top in the center, you actually see three names. You'll see the name of Martin Delaney, who our previous presenter highlighted very eloquently. Then we'll see Frederick Douglass, who actually was not a Mason.
Frederick Douglass was a Mason. He was cool. Now he's saying he wasn't a Mason, but he was a preacher. A preacher and a Mason is the same thing at this time, girl. I'm about to show you. Watch this. Give me a second. Let him talk. I want the brother to give you what he know, and then I'm gonna give you all the whole story.
Black men had, in his words, better things to do than play dress up, and that actually played a part in him and Martin Delaney kind of having a fallout, because Delaney was a very, very active Mason. Not only was he writing on the topic of the organization, but he also was an administrative officer. He actually served as a deputy Grand Master for the Southern Western District up in Ohio.
So let's be clear again, y'all. He said there's a lot of Prince Hall Masons popping up. That's what he said. But this brother, he said they coming from the north. But this brother just said that, the white boy text one and said that they've been there. and they got all the power. He said the black boys in the South got all the power, or the people in the South, but ain't no white boys now. I showed you that the Yankees coming from the North is the Black Dutch. That's how they describe them.
Now, there is a northern jurisdiction and a southern jurisdiction, but the northern jurisdiction, which was set up during the Civil War, actually answers to the southern jurisdiction. So Albert Pike became the world-famous Freemason, and he and an Italian member of the Illuminati, Giuseppe Mazzini, basically controlled the primary secret societies of the whole world.
Now, who is Albert Pike? Come on, y'all. You know how we do. You know how we do. Who is Albert Pike, man? You know what I'm saying? Because
so fat. Brendan, you're not fat.
They front. They just said he the most powerful nigga in the world off of Freemasonry, and Freemasonry was in the South. So that means the South was the most powerful niggas in the world before that. Who is this nigga? Let's find out. Now this is, you see they got the Masonic symbol on the board here. Whoever this dude is, he with them. You know what I'm saying?
I've entitled it Albert Pike, Scottish Rite, the Civil War.
It's them.
Albert Pike was born and raised in the Boston, Massachusetts area, but as a 40-year-old, we find him in Arkansas.
Oh, this is what they don't want you to know. Born in Boston, nigga, 40 years old and goes to Arkansas. What's in Arkansas? That's what some $5 Indians just got kicked out. Remember, they got kicked out of Georgia and they moved to Arkansas. So the nigga from Boston, he not even a Mason. He moves to Arkansas with some Indians that just got kicked out and now they're on a reservation. Okay.
Albert Pike became a Master Mason in 1850 at the age of 40 in Little Rock. 3 years
in Little Rock. He on a reservation. This nigga left Boston to go to the South. Understand they trying to make Arkansas still a South. So he go 1850. They just told you in 1859 he the president of the whole shit.
Later, in 1853, he became worshipful master of his lodge. He also became active during that time.
His lodge is on a reservation with a bunch of Indians. Come on now, understand this. Is in Arkansas, in Little Rock. He from Boston.
In New York Rite. By 1853, listen to this, he had already become high priest of the Royal Arch Masonry.
He said, listen to this. He don't even believe it. He said, listen to this. In 3 years, listen to this. He don't believe it.
In New York Rite. By 1853, listen to this, he had already become high priest of the Royal Arch Masonry, and later he became the Grand High Priest.
He don't believe it. Look at his head nodding. He did all this shit in 3 years on an Indian reservation in the middle of nowhere with some fucking refugees, some trailer ass niggas, and they making Masons. They making the in 3 years. He the chief now. He the leader in 3 years.
He had become
shrugging his shoulders. He don't even believe this shit. He trying to read it. He don't even believe this shit. We just heard text say that the power's in the South. It sounds weird to me.
Illustrious master of the Council of Royal and Select Masters, and he had become the first eminent commander of Knights Templars, all in the course of 3 years.
All in the course of 3 years. What this nigga doing? What he doing? He just studying to be a Mason?
His intelligence and leadership skills were so obvious that he seemed to be elevated to positions of authority in almost every endeavor that he took on. Also, in this period of 1853, he became a 32nd Scottish Rite Mason. After he had already done all his York Rite work, he becomes the 32nd.
After, you know what I mean? He looking around for some motherfucking like, do y'all believe this shit? So I'm trying to set the scene that this shit seemed like a plant. This nigga seemed like a plant. Why no black Masons don't have this information? Why the Prince Hall Masons gotta set up lodges? Why they don't have lodges?
Second Scottish Rite Mason. He was able to find time, in addition to his masonry activities, to have a successful law practice and be involved in political activities in Arkansas during those days. Now, this is Pike immediately. Here he is, he's just had the degrees, just taken the degrees. Pike immediately recognizes that the Scottish Rite degrees were in bad shape and were in need of revision. The additions and deletions.
Come on, this nigga been here for 3 weeks, 3 years, and the shit in bad shape. He about to change the whole shit in 3 years. I just wanted to set it up. That the nigga came from Boston. Boston is where they start the whole revolution. Boston is where they create this union. Boston is where Benjamin Franklin comes from. He comes from Boston. He goes to Arkansas, becomes a master mason, becomes a general in the army. And now, after the Civil War, you got all these goddamn Prince Hall masonries popping up. I didn't say the shit. I didn't say the shit. All of a sudden, this nigga, the black niggas had all the power. Now everybody a goddamn Prince Hall Mason. And he said the Prince Hall Masons is Jacobites. They black Jacobites. Oh, black Dutch. That's what a Dutch is, a Jacobite. Listen to this shit. We gotta go back because I want y'all to get the context.
I'm talking about today is Freemasons, agitation and abolition. But one thing I want to get into first is the psychology of what would make somebody like my ancestor Joe McBride and so many others decide to even want to become Masons, especially so fresh out of slavery. What was it that really would lead them into this direction? So I'm starting off this presentation with kind of a funny sounding slide. Sonic aprons save houses, and I know everyone's going, what are you talking about? Right here, this photo is of Mr. Allison Kreiner. He's not a relative of mine, but he was a slave in New York. And as we can see here from this picture right there, it's a little distorted. I apologize about that. He actually became the treasurer of when he was a slave of a man named Andrew McBride in a place called Troy, Alabama. In researching Joe McBride's life and his family and his history, it was very typical of men and Masons who from his time period. And again, we're talking about the last generation of people born into slavery in the United States. Joe McBride would go on to actually have somewhat of a middle-class lifestyle. He was a landowner, very well-respected citizen in the community. And as we can see here from this picture right there, it's a little distorted. I apologize about that. He actually became the treasurer of Myrtle Lodge number 162 in Spring Hill, Alabama, which is an unincorporated African-American community right outside the city of Troy. Also, we actually see here, if you look up right there, it says Toby Townsend with JW, that stands for Junior Warden, which Junior Warden is kind of like a second vice president position. And I'm going to slide back for just 1 second. If you see his daughter right there with the slash mark across her face, Toby Townsend actually was her husband, as I was able to find out. There's just one thing about Joseph McBride, one last detail I need to tell you all. He's my great-great-great-great-grandfather, 4 greats. He was a Prince Hall Mason. Born in Spain, became a Prince Hall Mason, and I actually got that picture from my grandfather. Both those pictures actually I got from my grandfather, I got from his grandfather. I had no idea that he was a Prince Hall Mason until that day, and I don't know where Ken went, but he can tell you when there he is. He can tell you when I found that I was in tears because I was not looking for that. Actually, I was looking for another relative, and I found him. And I was in tears. So with that said, I'm actually dedicating this presentation to the memory of Brother Joseph Okay, so let's begin. Again, the topic that I'm talking about today is Freemasons, agitation and abolition. But one thing I want to get into first is the psychology of what would make somebody like my ancestor Joe McBride and so many others decide to even want to become Masons, especially so fresh out of slavery. What was it that really would lead them into this direction? So I started off this presentation with kind of a funny sounding slide. Sonic aprons save houses, and everyone's going, what are you talking about? Right here, this photo is of Mr. Allison Kreiner. He's not a relative. He is not a relative of mine, but he was a slave in Newmarket, Alabama, which is, I believe, on the western side of the state, closer to the Mississippi border. And
they're not real slaves, though.
As the Civil War was going on, he was a child, but as an older man in 1921, he actually was contacted by the descendant of the granddaughter of his former slave master, Mr. Isaac Kreiner. And she asked him, she's a college student, she says, I know slavery was a very raw time, and I know it's very emotional, but I'm really trying to learn about what was your life like being a slave in my family. Were they good slave owners? Were they bad slave owners? Like, there's a difference, okay? And Allison Kreiner says, okay, if you want to know what it was like, I'll tell you. And he writes a very, very long letter.
Right. But look at this picture, though. He don't even look like a black man. Like, he looked like he a mulatto. He looked like he might be a little bit, mestizo. He black, but this is what I'm saying. Like, they painting the picture crazy, but I want him to tell his story, bro. Let him tell his story. I love this story.
Detailing what his childhood was like as a slave of her grandfather. And his account of the Civil War is very interesting. And I'm just gonna read to you a very short snippet from what he says to kind of give you an idea of how Masonry plays into this discussion. Mr. Kreiner says, and I quote, this letter is dated January 22nd, 1921. He says, quote, the Civil War broke out and the Yankees came to our house. This was the Black Dutch. The bushwhackers had waylaid the road.
This was the Black Dutch. This is the nigga describing who the niggas was. The Yankees. This is the Black Dutch. Not no white boys coming here with no guns. Not no white boys coming here laying away and stealing. These are some niggas, some Black Dutch, some Yankees. I need y'all to pay attention to this.
He says, quote, the Civil War broke out and the Yankees came to our house. This was the Black Dutch. The bushwhackers had waylaid the road and killed General McCook on August 2nd, 1862, at night on his way to Nashville. They burned all the fine dwellings in the neighborhood at Newmarket.
They burned, these is niggas now, they burned all the fine dwellings. The black people burned all the fine dwellings in the town.
And did not allow the white ladies to take as much as a photo.
And did not allow the white ladies. He made sure to tell that what the niggas did to the white people. They did not allow the white people. This ain't white people doing this to white people. This is Black Dutch doing this to white people.
Or dress from the burning building. They did not burn up my old master's house, however, because Miss Betty had showed them some Masonic apparatus. But they took the silverware from my mother who had hidden it. Now again, this is something that it kind of stuck out to me when I first read this document.
They didn't take the, you know what I'm saying? They didn't burn our house because we in the craft. We down with the fuck shit. We helping these niggas steal this land from the Indians, from the people here that got all the money. We coming from Boston. Where would you find Black Dutch at? Black Dutch is going to be in New Amsterdam or you going to be in Boston? Where's the Black Dutch at? They're going to say you're a Protestant? You heard of the bushwhacker. Everybody heard of bushwhackers. They never said the bushwhackers was black. But that's the account of the people that was there. The people living it saying they was some niggas. And this is what they did to the white people, to the white women. Wouldn't even let them get a dress out the burning building.
Because I actually was informed about this from a friend of mine, and I'm really into family history. And a friend of mine showed this to me. I said, "Wow, that's interesting that he would know that his master was a Mason. And why would that be?" This apron is not the same apparatus that he's talking about, but it's from another situation which was exactly the same. And as I started to research this, I said, wow, there's a lot of stories from slaves talking about their masters being Masons in the Civil War and all these miraculous things happening because somebody showed them an apron or a ring or what have you.
So are you seeing what I'm saying? Like all of these masters, these quote unquote masters being Masons. You know what I'm saying? Like you get these foreigners, they come down here and they just foreigners. A Dutch is a foreigner. He don't care. He don't care if it's the South or the North. He want it all. It's all foreign to these black Dutch. They trying to hide some history in plain sight. The nigga said they was the black Dutch, they was Yankees. Why he still calling them Dutch? They ain't Americans yet? They've been in New York a long time now. What's wrong with these niggas that they still acting like Dutch? He still calling them Yankees. Not Union. Not Northerners. Black Dutch. Come on, y'all.
And that started to play into my thinking. I said, wow, after 1865, after the Emancipation Proclamation, you start having all these Prince Hall Grand Lodges popping up between 1866 and 1875. The fraternity membership explodes exponentially. So this was something that I wanted to look at. Again, I just wanted to look at, who are these Prince Hall Masons? This is actually a lithograph, a copy of which is actually here at the exhibit. By the way, please support the African American Civil War Museum. They've been a great partner to us in putting this program together. And let's give them a round of hand. I actually first saw this out here, as a matter of fact. It's actually over there in the back corner by the restroom, so please check it out on your way out. But if you look right here on the left-hand side there, you'll see all these different images that are related to the emancipation of black people and all the different factors that played into it. So we see the Holy Bible, starting to say that slavery was unjust, it was against God's law. At the very tip of the top, in the center, you actually see three names. You'll see the name of Martin Delaney, who our previous presenter highlighted very eloquently. Then we'll see Frederick Douglass, who actually was not a Mason, and he actually thought that black men had, in his words,
the American Revolution. Do y'all see how all this shit plays together? You see how they keep sending these flunkies to the South, sending these flunkies to infiltrate us? We thinking Prince Hall from New York. This nigga from Boston. Why ain't they got their own fucking rites and rituals and shit? Why they gotta get a white boy from Boston to go down to the South and steal some rituals from some bootleg $5 Indians and shit? But he from Boston. Don't let him fool you.
Even in the civil rights movement and down to today, you really don't see that. You don't see Prince Hall Masons as visual as you did back then. But it got me thinking, well, why? What were they doing? What did they do that was so important that would get them on a lithograph like this, celebrating the 15th Amendment? Well, to start at the beginning, very briefly, for those who do not know, Prince Hall was a free African American living in Boston during the American Revolution. He was most likely born as a slave to William Hall, and documents show that he was probably manumitted April 9, 1770. On March 6, 1775, Prince Hall became a Master Mason in an Irish military lodge, Irish Constitution Lodge 441, with 14 other black men.
You know what I'm saying? So again, understand what's popping here. You got a free black man that's now he gets his masonry from some Irish niggas. They tell you that the power coming from the South, but this nigga, he get his motherfucking power from some Irish boys. Scottish. See what I'm saying? And now they talking about a Scottish rite. They done came up with a York rite. And he from Boston. You know what I'm saying? He from Boston. You got to go back. Find out this connection.
Albert Pike was born and raised in the Boston, Massachusetts area, but as a 40-year-old, we find him in Arkansas. Albert Pike became a Master Mason in 1850 at the age of 40 in Little Rock. 3 years later, in 1853, he became worshipful master of his lodge. He also became active during that time in the York Rite. By 1853, listen to this, he had already become high priest of the Royal Arch Masonry, and later he became the Grand High Priest. He had become illustrious master of the Council of Royal and Select Masters, and he had become the first eminent commander of Knights Templars.
And he from Boston. You got all these fuck niggas from Boston coming down here with this shit that ain't theirs, stealing shit that ain't theirs, when all the power's in the South.
Basically, the largest and most powerful Masonic group in the whole world. Now, there is a northern jurisdiction and a southern jurisdiction, but the northern jurisdiction, which was set up during the Civil War, actually answers to the southern jurisdiction.
Who running
So
it?
Albert Pike became the world-famous Freemason, and he and an Italian member of the Illuminati, Giuseppe Mazzini, basically controlled the primary secret societies of the whole world.
You gotta explain this to me. You gotta explain this to me, cuz. You gotta explain this to me. How these niggas from Boston take over the South with these black Dutch, these black Yankees.
On September 24, 1784, he was actually granted a charter from the Grand Lodge of England, which is the founding Masonic organization of the entire world. And he started African Lodge number 459 and served as master from that date until his death. After his death, the movement became nationwide over the next few decades, and now we've taken on the name of Prince Hall affiliated Grand Lodges in his honor. But Prince Hall was a very, very, very active civil rights advocate early on in the birth of the new republic. Prince Hall was a very...
No, you know what I'm saying? Why you gotta be a civil rights advocate if you got accepted by white boys? White boys put you on and 14 other niggas. So they obviously accepting somebody. Niggas ain't trying to be accepted because niggas got the power in the South. Now they want to be accepted. That's the point. You accepted, motherfucker. When you was the nigga that had the power, now they just accept your ass.
Active in the fields of education, but also in terms of petitioning the Massachusetts legislature to actually abolish the slave trade and help to educate black children. There's actually documents showing that he actually was a proponent of black schools. He opened his house to educate black children and get young Harvard University professors to actually come in their off time to try to teach our children, which, again, who's doing this in the 1770s, 1780s? Prince Hall actually petitioned for the for assistance to free kidnapped African men and women to try to get them home. If anybody's seen the film 12 Years a Slave, let me tell you right now, that story might have been a little different had Solomon Northrop been involved with the Masonic fraternity. I'm going to read to you something very quickly, because I know time is of the essence. This letter is from Reverend Jeremy Belknap, who was a very good friend of Prince Hall. He writes, quote, he wrote this on April 18, 1788 to Benjamin Rush of Philadelphia. He said, "I have one good piece of news to tell you. The Negroes who were kidnapped from here last winter have returned. They were carried to St. Bartholomew's and offered for sale. One of them was a sensible fellow and a Freemason. The merchant to whom they were offered was of this fraternity. They soon became acquainted. The Negro told his story. They were carried before the governor with the shipmaster and the superhold. The story of the Negroes was that they were decoyed on board under pretense of working. The story of the other, being the ship captain, was that they were purchased out of jail, where they were confined for a robbery. The governor detained them. They were kept with him within the limits until a gentleman from the island, being a bondsman for them for 6 months, in which time they sent for proof, after which arrived, they were liberated. The morning after their arrival here, they made me a quick visit, being introduced by Prince Hall, who is primus inter persona of the blacks in this town of Boston. So this shows you, again, Prince Hall is not an elected official, but he is at the head of the governing structure of the African community, the burgeoning African American community of Revolutionary War Boston.
Of Revolutionary War of Boston. He got to add that prefix. Of rabble rousing as Boston, of agent provocateur as Boston. are some agent ass niggas, or some provocateur ass niggas. See what I'm saying? Where did these niggas come from? We got all the power. All of a sudden, these niggas want to come around here and add all these funny ass degrees, make niggas get on their knees and do all this dumb shit. And from this weird, listen, nobody believe Albert Pike. Listen to this real quick. This was all
in the course of 3 years. His intelligence and leadership skills were so obvious that he seemed to be elevated to positions of authority in almost every endeavor that he took on. Also, in this period of 1853, he became a 32nd Scottish Rite Mason. After he had already done all his York Rite work, he becomes the 32nd Scottish Rite Mason. He was able to find time, in addition to his masonry activities, to have a successful law practice and be involved in political activities in Arkansas during those days. Now, this is Pike immediately. Here he is, he's just had the degrees, just taken the degrees. Pike immediately recognizes that the Scottish Rite degrees were in bad shape and were in need of revision.
this nigga laughed.
The additions and deletions through the years.
Laughed because that's disrespectful. He immediately recognized. Come on now, you gonna bring your funky ass up in here and tell me my house ain't cool? You don't know nothing, just got here and he immediately recognized that the shit ain't right. This is how you start a civil war. This is how you create a plant. Because again, you start with these secret societies. You want to infiltrate peace and tranquility. You want to be around here playing signs and symbols in plain sight. We see.
Years had made them disjointed. He therefore embarked upon this task in 1854 and 1855 on his own. Here he has just become a new 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, and he embarks on revising the rituals already. And then a little later, he was appointed to a committee to officially revise the degrees. Well, evidently, he was the committee.
He was the committee.
Upon completion of his work in 1857, he was awarded the honor of a 33rd degree and elected to the Supreme Council. With the resignation of Grand Commander Reverend John Henry Horn due to failing eyesight in 1859, Pike was elevated to that position. Now here's a guy who becomes a Master Mason in 1850 and then accepts the position of Sovereign Grand Commander 9 years later. This guy's got to be some kind of a genius. Evidently,
or agent.
This high position in the Scottish Rite really didn't mean as much as we look at it today, because the state of the Scottish Rite during this time was very delicate.
Listen to what he's saying.
In addition to the degree problems, these higher degrees were still not very well accepted by many of the members.
They were not accepted.
Of the basic fraternity of the Blue Lodge.
So all of a sudden, now today, if you ain't got all these fancy letters, you ain't nobody. But back in the day, they like, yo, what is that fancy pants shit? All that extra shit, nobody respect that. That's these Northern niggas, these Prince Hall niggas talking about something, you gotta be a Scottish Rite and all this little dumb shit. He telling you at the time when this new nigga brought this old Fonzarelli old bullshit, they was like, nobody want to hear that. Nobody wanted to hear that.
As we look at it today, because the state of the Scottish Rite during this time was very delicate. In addition to the degree problems, these higher degrees were still not very well accepted by many of the members of the basic fraternity of the Blue Lodge. When Pike took over, there were 9 members of the Supreme Council. That's all that were set up to be. Some of these members viewed the position as strictly honorary, and attendance was spasmodic at the council meetings. This statement alone indicates to me that the Supreme Council had very little control back in those days. When Pike took over, there were, listen to this, there were no existing records minutes or documents of the first 58 years of Supreme Council activity. Can you imagine that? It seems that they were handwritten, and since they didn't really have a home or an office or headquarters like they have now, they were taken home by the Grand Treasurer and the Grand Secretary, and in the course of the years, they get lost. And so anyway, he started with the zero.
These niggas erased all the history. They erased all the evidence and shit. Now all you got is these fancy degrees and these weird ass rituals that don't mean nothing, that don't have no spiritual meaning. They just rituals. This new nigga just came in here and twisted everything up. But ain't nobody paying attention to it because, like he said, don't nobody care about this shit. Everybody, the regular Masons don't go past the blue lies. They don't know nothing about this fancy pants shit, this Prince Hall stupid shit. These niggas from the north.
So as I read this history, I come to the conclusion, and now this is my opinion, that without the arrival of Albert Pike, these higher degrees, which we call Scottish Rite, would have eventually vanished and disappeared.
It disappeared.
In the Supreme Council.
It disappeared. All that old bullshit these niggas talking about, all that old fancy ass Illuminati shit that these niggas is doing, it's a conspiracy. Nobody paid attention to that shit. That shit is garbage. Without these conspiracy caveman fuckers, if they wasn't planning on separating and taking the power from the South, starting this war, this Boston shit, running a Boston on niggas, if they wasn't planning on running a Boston, all that shit would have disappeared. Because ain't nobody that's in the Masonry knowing nothing about this at the time. This is all secret shit by some Indians on a reservation. Secret weirdo shit. These niggas making up.
We see here, again, this burst of philosophy of liberation with Prince Hall really at the head of whether people knew it or not. Another famous member of African Lodge early on was David Walker. David Walker, the very, very, very epitome of what this spirit embodied at the time. Would actually serve as African Lodge 459 secretary. Probably his most famous work being that of David Walker's Appeal, where he actually was advocating for blacks to liberate themselves by any means necessary, hundreds of years before Malcolm X would ever utter those words. Walker would also work as a sales agent for Freedom's Journal, the first black-owned newspaper in America, and his son, Edward G. Walker, became the first black man elected to the Massachusetts legislature.
But see, again, all these niggas is black men now. It was always Indians here. You know what I'm saying? Indians could be elected. The Indians don't even want to participate in these bullshit. But now all of a sudden you got niggas that want to participate because they Prince Hall Masons, they part of an African lodge, so now they gotta be black men. And he gets to be the first because it ain't no black men. Everybody got a family and some tribes and some last names. But these niggas throw their shit away to be a part of a fucking a scam.
Earlier, Brother Tahuti Evans mentioned William Custis Costin, one of the founding members of Social Lodge #1, first secretary, third worshipful master. That's his picture right there. Something I don't think that our brother pointed out was that William Custis Costin, in his day job, he actually worked here in the District of Columbia as a clerk for the Bank of Washington. And upon his death, the Bank of Washington actually authorized the sketch to be drawn of him, and it's still in existence here. I believe the Library of Congress actually has the original.
Like they got a nigga looking like an Indian, you know what I mean, working for the Bank of Washington, claiming like he oppressed. Who oppressing this nigga? That's what I'm saying. Like, you gotta watch these niggas from the north, man. These agents, these Masons from the north, these Black Dutch.
And again, we start to see that this model, this template, as our brother pointed out earlier, is something that spreads not only from Boston, but to Philadelphia, and then to New York, and then to...
Not only from Boston, but Philadelphia and New York.
Rhode Island, and then to New Jersey, and then here in 1848 in Washington, D.C. It spreads dramatically because it's successful and it's actually working.
They running to Boston. They running a goddamn Boston. These niggas about to get all 13 books. These goddamn Masons and this funny duddy shit. They running a Boston. You hear these niggas? Boston niggas then infiltrated Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, yada, yada, yada. Boston. Nobody else.
It's something that spreads not only from Boston, but to Philadelphia, and then to New York, and then to Rhode Island, and then to New Jersey, and then here in 1848 in Washington, D.C. It spreads dramatically because it's successful and it's actually working. And one thing that we saw earlier with Mr. Kreiner's letter is that masonry was something that actually could cross the color lines so that business could be handled. And whenever there was any kind of...
You hear that? Masonry could cross the color lines, and that's how they play behind the scenes. But in front of the scenes, he protesting. You know what I mean? But in front of the scenes, they pointing out division. They got the two-headed fucking phoenix. They want you to think it's all bad. But behind the scenes, they all in the same lodge. They want to get rid of the nigger lodge in the South. They want to get rid of the Indian lodge, the social lodge. Because again, all they did is take the lodge concept, the smoke lodge. They took the lodge concept, the fraternal concept of Indians having hand signs and gestures and training braves to be scouts, a brave scout to a boy scout. They just hijacked all this Indian shit and put it into the secret society shit so they can fuck around and do division, so they could be agents. You hear this? Agents of agitation and abolition. What they trying to abolish? All these niggas rich. But I told y'all they ain't got nothing to sell up in New York. All they got to do is fast talk. Ain't no products in Boston. So they come down south and cause division.
Tension, kidnapping, anything of that nature, there was some kind of a common level where black men and white men could discuss the matters of the day. Conflict erupts. In 1861, the Civil War breaks out on April the 12th and lasts until the Confederacy surrendered on April the 9th, 1865. Prince Hall Masons, all of whom fell into categories of being runaway slaves, freemen, sons of runaways, they all felt a united bond in trying to end the specter that had lasted over their lives as long as they could remember. According to a Masonic census that had actually been taken of white Freemasons in the year 1858, roughly 4% of all military-aged white men in America were members of the Masonic fraternity. So what I decided to do for this presentation is I actually took that number, 4%, and applied it to Black America. The history shows us, documents show us that when the United States colored troops were actually drawn up for enlistment, they numbered some 178,895 black men fighting for the freedom of their people.
178,000 black people. They don't tell y'all that. They don't tell y'all it was 178,000 niggas fighting. Come on.
4% of that number would mean that there were approximately 7,155 Prince Hall Masons serving in the Union Army during the Civil War.
And I'm sure it's more than that. Out of 175,000, they include them black Dutch, them Yankees. I used to tell y'all them Yankees was black. Y'all ain't want to hear that. Yankee is the Indian name, dog. Yankee. That don't sound like no European. A Yankee is what you call an Indian. These niggas be hating me, boy. I get to the Rudy Tooty Fresh and Rudy of the shit.
Now, that's a huge number. And outside of probably religious affiliation, I can't think of any other organization that would have had that kind of a grasp on black men at this time.
Wow. It's a religious organization. It's the same shit. If you're not a Mason, you're a preacher. They pushing the same shit. They the same niggas. They the same niggas. They black fucking... They black Dutch. They black Dutch. I know how deep this shit get. Let me show y'all how. I hate to keep doing this. I hate to keep doing these niggas work. I hate to keep doing this because y'all know I got it. Fuck with me. Y'all know I got it. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. You know, I got it. See, I don't even want y'all to get too caught up in this shit. But this was
His mazy windings, lest he should lose himself when in pursuit of the section.
this what y'all need.
The reader has already.
Hold on. Y'all need to be up here. The history of Jacobitism. You know what I'm saying? When niggas is talking about Jacobitism. I don't know about black.
Memoirs illustrating the history of Jacobinism.
You see the year 1797, written in French. This how you. Of course you don't believe the audio book. You don't just stick to that, but we on.
Written in French by Abbé Barruel, 1797. Part 4. The Antisocial Conspiracy. Historical part. Preliminary discourse.
The anti-social conspiracy. That's what these niggas are saying in 1797 about these goddamn Dutch. Everybody know what you said, a Jacobite. This the same thing. These the niggas that got kicked out of Europe and shit. You know what I'm saying? Anti-social conspiracy. They don't show you all these books in school.
Object and plan of this volume. Conceived but a short time before the French Revolution, by a man whose ambition seemed confined within the narrow compass of the town of Ingolstadt and to the dusty folios of his schools, by what strange means did Illuminism, in less than 15 years, become that formidable sect which, under the name of Jacobin, rides triumphant over ruined altars, shivered.
This nigga just, in 1797, he just said the Illuminati is now the Jacobites. The Jacobites is now fucking... I'm telling you, there ain't no Jewish people before you get these Jacobites. That's y'all. They don't believe all that shit. These all the same people. These all the same people, cuz. It's all the same people. The anti-social conspiracy of these niggas. You see what I'm saying? Motherfuckers try to grow a brain and shit. Niggas try to grow a brain on some niggas. Come to America with the same old fuck shit.
Fraternity of Albert Pike, you're going to understand just where we're at today. You may say, oh, Tex, you're talking about ancient history. No. The same forces that were commanded by Albert Pike, who just, right at the time, I think it was in 1859, had become the sovereign grand commander of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. That was basically the largest and most powerful Masonic group in the whole world. Now, there is a northern jurisdiction and a southern jurisdiction, but the northern jurisdiction, which was set up during the Civil War, actually answers to the southern jurisdiction. So Albert Pike became the world-famous Freemason, and he and an Italian member of the Illuminati, Giuseppe Mazzini, basically controlled the primary secret societies of the whole world. Only a few short years after the war. Now, Albert Pike wrote a book. It was not published until, I believe, right before his death in the 1880s. It's a book that I have actually a couple of copies here in my library, entitled Morals and Dogma. That's the short title. The actual full title is Morals and Dogma of the Accepted Rite of the Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, and all that.
Don't forget he wrote that in Arkansas on an Indian reservation.
Kind of stuff in it. And it's a very interesting book, burgundy leather cover. It has a symbol on the front, the double-headed eagle in gold. The double-headed eagle. Now we're going to study what that double-headed eagle means. It's the symbol of the motto of 33rd degree Freemasonry. Now, if you look up on the internet and go to Google and look up images of Albert Pike, you will find him wearing a necklace. And on that necklace is the double-headed eagle, which was very important to him and all Freemasons. It still is to this day. But you will also find another picture of him in which he is wearing a cross, but not a Christian cross. It is a strange and bizarre cross with 3 horizontal bars. Some people say, well, that is indicative of the Christian Trinity, those 3 bars, but not so. Now, we'll also talk about that in just a few minutes, and you'll find out about the meaning of that cross with the 3 horizontal bars on it, which Pike wore around his neck as a necklace. By the way, Aleister Crowley, the famous British Satanist who called himself the wickedest man on earth, 666, also wore the same symbol. It is a symbol of Lucifer. Now, it's interesting that Lucifer is one of the main stars, you might say, of Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogma. Now, in Morals and Dogma, and by the way, it's a very complex, sophisticated book, Pike, it's not original. He took out all the knowledge of a number of pagan mystery religion books that were in print at that time, and he sort of collected them all together, sort of a compendium of the mystery religions and paganism. Now, Pike himself says very bluntly that it's not a Christian book. He says Freemasonry is not a Christian organization. Now, in 1861, a Mason who was a member of the Scottish Rite fraternity was challenged because people said at the time, you're not a Christian group. The Freemasons are a pagan group. Well, this particular Freemason was very high up in one of the churches, and he got together with a number of other clergymen who also were Freemasons, and they put out a statement. They said, we are a Christian organization based on Christian principles. And unfortunately for these gentlemen, Albert Pike came out then with his own statement. And of course, he was the sovereign grand commander of all Freemasonry. People would listen to him. He was the boss of the group. Here's what he said. He said the Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, has no pretensions to being Christian. Oh. If it had a Christian basis, Pike wrote, how did it chance that most of those who had possession of it in this country from 1763 to 1800 were Hebrews? In other words, Jews. Now, let me read that again.
Read that again.
He's saying it's not a Christian group at all. It's not a Christian religion. If it were, why then did most of those in the Masonic Lodge, especially those who had high up positions, from 1763 when it was founded in the Americas until 1800 were Jews? They were Jews.
Why were they Jews?
Now, it was in 1763 that a man named Stephen Morin came from France. He stopped off in the Caribbean, but he then came to the United States, and he began to set up lodges of the Scottish Rite. Now, very curiously, you ask, why do they call it the Scottish Rite? Because Mr. Morin was from France. Well, that's because the Knights Templar, the predecessor group of the Freemasons, was at one time kicked out of France. And the head of the group was burned at the stake. He was accused of sodomy, and the Knights Templar were accused of urinating on a statue of Jesus Christ and of worshiping a idol that they called Baphomet, the beast god idol. And the Pope and the King of France saw to it that this Freemason named de Molay, Jacques de Molay, was sent to the stake and burned. But the Masons at the time, who call themselves the Templars, fled to Scotland. And there they again founded their Masonic Lodge, and it became the Scottish Rite. Now, somebody wrote to me back recently, and they said, you know, Tex, you say the Scottish Rite is the most important.
Now I'm telling you how it all came together, though. Because again, you got to go back. He's telling you all of this shit, but he's telling you that the dude became the most powerful leader of secret societies when he became the leader of secret societies in America. When they took over America, they took over all that shit. Understand that. When they took over the South. So Albert Pike is coming here with all this old Jacobite shit. He keeps saying the beginning niggas was Jews.
Scepters and scattered crowns, over the wrecks of nations and their constitutions, over the bodies of potentates fallen. Beneath their poisons or their poignards, while they drag others in their train, craving a servitude termed peace, or branding themselves with the infamy of what they call an alliance? Under this name of Jacobin, absorbing all the mysteries, plots, and combinations of every sectary against every religion, government, and society, by what artifice could...
Now understand what a Jacobin is. Jacobin is Jacob. Jacob. So if you are Jacobism. You see what I'm saying? Jacob. If you talking about Jacob, you talking about Judaism. Jacob is Israel. When he changed his name after he wrestled with God, right? He became Israel. So these niggas at first was Jacobins. The Jacobin is the Jewish person. Everybody's saying the same story. This the nigga from 1794.
Illuminism acquired the dominion of terror which forbids any sovereign within the astonished universe to say, tomorrow I shall continue seated on my throne, which forbids nations and citizens to say that their laws and religion, their houses and property, will not be torn from them, which forbids the peaceful inhabitant to lie down to rest with any assurance that he will not rise in the morning beneath the shade of that symbol of blood, called the tree of liberty, and threatened by the axe of the devouring guillotine? How is it possible that the secret adepts of the modem Spartacus should be the invisible and exclusive movers of that long chain of crimes and calamities, that disastrous torrent of ferocity and rapine, which is called the Revolution? How do they continue to direct those machinations which are to consummate the dissolution and misery of human society? In dedicating this fourth volume to the investigation of these questions, I do not flatter myself with the hopes of
Boy, how? We know how. We on the hills. We know how. We know how they doing it with these black ass motherfucking Yankees. With these black ass Yankees. These black Dutch acting like they don't exist. Trying to erase it out of history.
Lodge in the world. But George Washington, as you say, Tex Mars, said to an associate, you wrote a letter, and he said, I have not been active in the Masonic Lodge. I have only visited a lodge once in 30 years. Did you, Tex Mars, lie about George Washington? Well, this same rumor was spread, this same letter that George Washington had written was spread about by a number of Christian groups. And they said, you see, the founding father of our country, George Washington, was a Mason, but he didn't know anything about the lodge. In fact, he had only been to a lodge visiting once in 30 years. Well, this just shows the ignorance of these people. Let me explain this to you. Stephen Morin from France, an officer of the Scottish Rite, came to the United States in 1763 and began to set up lodges. Now, at that time, the lodge in the United States was the United Lodge. The United Lodge, not the Scottish Rite Lodge. You see, there are a number of different lodges around the world. Today, France has its own lodge called the Grand Orient Lodge, which is a bunch of communist, atheist monsters, put that away, in France. But Great Britain had the United Lodge, and the king and the princes and all of the royalty of the generals and so forth of Great Britain were all members of the United Lodge. And so the members of the United States, George Washington and all the others, most of the top, politicians in the United States, were also members of the United Lodge. It was the only one that we had in the United States. But when Morin came in 1763 and began setting up these Scottish Rite Lodges, he recruited a number of Americans, very prominent Americans.
So again, we talking 1763. We talking revolution in 1776. These niggas get here and start trouble. Quick.
Who later on became the founders of this country. And he said, leave the United Lodge and join the Scottish Rite Lodge. So the Scottish Rite Lodge became a rebellious group. It became the group that really set up the war against England, the Revolutionary War.
Damn.
The members of the Scottish Rite met at a tavern named the Dragon. The Dragon, we keep coming up with that, don't we? And they formulated their plan for the Boston Tea Party. It was Freemasons dressed as Indians who held the Boston Tea Party, threw out the tea because there was a tax on it, etc., etc.
Again, so now we see why some niggas have to dress up like some Indians, because the Indians is the only Freemasons that got power. The Indians might be Indians from the Southern District, and they might be more powerful than these fake-ass United Indians from the North with no power. So these motherfuckers just get here off the boat. These Jacobins just get here. The first thing they do is dressed up like Indians. They pretend to be Indians. That's the first claim to fame in America, is pretending to be the gods.
All members of the Scottish Rite. And George Washington and the other people who signed our Constitution renounced their membership in the United Lodge and joined the Scottish Rite Lodge. Because the Scottish Rite Lodge was aimed against the royalty and the elite of Great Britain. So when America rebelled against Great Britain, well, the big poobahs of the United States, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, all the others, changed their lodge affiliation. And in fact, when George Washington wrote the letter he did, said, I have not visited a lodge but once in 30 years, he was talking about the United Lodge. He hadn't visited one in 30 years, that's true. But he constantly and continuously went to the Scottish Rite Lodge. So fervent was he that there are pictures of him and other Freemasons in their official Masonic regalia laying the cornerstone of government buildings in Washington, D.C. George Washington helped to lay the cornerstone for the U.S. Capitol building. That was the Scottish Rite. If you visit Mount Vernon, the ancestral home of George Washington, you will find that they have placed his tomb right on the estate grounds. That's where they buried the body of George Washington, right there. And it is designed in the form of the Scottish Rite Egyptian tomb. In fact, it resembles the Queen's chamber of the Great Pyramid, the Queen's chamber. And you have to pass through two obelisks side by side. So you enter a Masonic lodge, you might say, and there in repose is the body of George Washington. He was even laying in a Masonic lodge architectural setting when he died. That's how Masonic he was. But these people who don't know any better, others say, oh no, he only visited a lodge once in his last 30 years. He only visited the United Lodge. But the Scottish Rite Lodge by that time was a going proposition. It had started with Stephen Moore in 1763. And of course, by the time that Albert Pike in 1859 was made the Sovereign Grand Commander, it was the only one. There is no United Lodge in the United States anymore. There's only the Scottish Rite Lodge. At its peak, the Scottish Rite Lodge had up to 6 million members in America. I believe that was in the late 40s. Today, it has about 2 million. But they're very important people. extremely important. Among them are senators, congressmen, federal judges, and so forth. So the fact is that Pike exposed that this lodge at first was really, the true leaders of it were Jews. Morin, in fact, was a Jew. The first Secretary of the Treasury had a Jewish mother. That's Alexander Hamilton. Look at him. You see him on your, what bill is it? I forget now. I think he's on the nickel, isn't he? A coin. I think that's it, the nickel. Yeah. Alexander Hamilton, a Jew. Most people don't know that, of course. So this is a Jewish organization, but it is deceived and now has hundreds of thousands of members who are Gentiles. In fact, among churches were its greatest fans, you might say. And today you're going to find Freemasons who are Mormons, some Pentecostals, not many, some Assemblies of God. You'll find many in the mainline denominations, such as Methodist and Presbyterian, and you will especially find them among the Southern Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention, that has up to 18 million members, has many, many Freemasons in it.
It's getting crazy.
I just can't. So this shows us again. This is a uniting effort, but it goes even a little deeper than that. Prince Hall military lodges, which is something that anybody who's in the Masonic fraternity, Eastern Stars today, we're very familiar with. A good portion of our membership today actually either joined or are members of military lodges. We have one here in the District of Columbia, as a matter of fact, Nathaniel Adams Lodge number 28. But the first Prince Hall military lodge actually is started during the Civil War. That lodge was Louis Hayden Lodge number 8, named after Grandmaster Louis Hayden, who at this time was the Grand Master of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. He was also one of the people that actually think up of, to the governor saying, hey, why don't we start enlisting black men? And when they come, they're coming already trained, they're coming disciplined. And the next slide, you'll see that there's actually documents showing that when the white officers would walk up to a captain or a major, any of these so-called lower level officers, and try to tell them something, the lower level officer would get more respect than the white officers in times. But that's because the captain or the major or what have you was somebody important within the Masonic fraternity, but the white officers were totally oblivious to this at this time. Here we see Brother Peter Vogelsang. He actually, I believe he became a first lieutenant with the Massachusetts 54th, which was what the regiment that this lodge was attached to. And for those who do not know, the Massachusetts 54th is the same regiment that, if you saw the movie Glory, it's the same. These are the same people, but they had their own agenda. They had their own organization, which is actually documented in the history of the 54th, which was written by Captain Amelia, who wrote that First Sergeant William Gray of Company C had received a Masonic charter and organized a lodge on Morris Island, which is in South Carolina. And again, that lodge was named after Grand Master Louis Hayden. Brothers on the front line. These are just two examples of Prince Hall Masons who not only were talking the talk, but were walking the walk. Again, we meet our friend Major Martin R. Delaney, Deputy Grand Master in the state of Ohio, a brilliant Prince Hall Mason scholar. And then we also see another Prince Hall Mason who was in many ways in the same model as Martin Delaney out in the Midwest, Captain William D. Matthews, who, again, both of these men were very active in recruiting black men to serve in the United States colored troops. They both were, not only were they active in that activity, but they were also not just members of the Masonic fraternity. These men are Grand Masters. These men are high-ranking officials in the organization. So when they're telling brothers, form up, when they're telling brothers, let's do.
These men are master agents. These men are high members of the conspiracy. That's what he's saying. Like he said they started the militia. They was there to train niggas so they could join the army. And then they went to the governor and told the governor. The niggas ain't go to the governor. The Masons went to the governor and said, hey, we should get black people to join. You know what I mean? This is the game that they playing. The niggas is like, what they fighting for? We got our own problems. We killing these Cherokees. These motherfucking Gullah wars going on. And they asking the governor, hey, we should let these colored troops fight, get these Indians to be colored troops. We got a militia. But again, all this is this secret shit.
Do this, let's do that, blah, blah. They're doing it with an extra added dose of moral authority over their fellow servicemen. After the Civil War ends, thankfully, I hope we all know that the North won.
You know what I'm saying? He said they're doing it with a sense of authority, of normal authority. No, he's doing this with a conspiracy. These niggas is part of a conspiracy. Why won't he want to say it? That's he titled this shit Agents. You know what I'm saying? Agents. That's what he titled this shit. I didn't title this shit Agents. Where the title at? Hold on. Agents of Agitation and Abolition. He doing his best. He's so excited to be a Mason. His family part of this old Masonic agitation.
You start to see the birth of black elected officials. One of the first being Senator Hiram Rebels. Again, where are you going to find your black elected officials in the 1860s, 1870s, and 1880s? Where are they going to get their training? There were very few of them had college degrees.
You see? You hear what he's trying to say right here? He's trying to take control of the motherfucking of Reconstruction. No, you can't do that, nigga. Because all the niggas in the Reconstruction was chiefs. And they all had affiliations to some real Indians, not no fake tribes. And they making these niggas into black people, into Africans. These is Negroes. Now they want to make them Africans because of this African Lodge and shit. All this Boston shit. These niggas done ran to Boston, got all 12 tribes, and now they're going to make everybody an African. You see how all this come out of one place, of Boston.
There was no formal system. They're coming out of primarily the church, but also the Prince Hall Masonic lodges. And anybody involved in Masonic fraternity or any fraternal organization can understand where those skills would come from.
Right. You can understand where those church skills come from. If you're in the church, you know the church is the same niggas that started the AME church. The first black preachers was all Masons. Bethel AME, African Methodist, all that shit. All them, that Philadelphia shit, that's preachers. They Masons. So if you either a preacher, which is still a Mason, still part of this cult, or you either a Mason, you are undercover crypto, hiding out trying to run a Boston, starting wars and agitating, taking all the money from the folks, burning all the houses, these black Dutch.
I see a couple of my Masonic College graduates in here. Senator Rebels, again, Grand Chaplain, and brilliant Masonic scholar and politician. Now, here's something a special thing that I found, and we're actually winding down. A lot of people know the person furthest away from me, which is Senator Blanche K. Bruce. He was the first full-term African-American senator to come in after Hiram Rebels. But a lot of people don't know this man right here, Grand Master Henry C. Bruce. That's his older brother. Senator Blanche K. Bruce's older brother was Grand Master of the Prince Hall. He was the third Grand Master of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Kansas, serving that capacity in 1879. A lot of us, again, we've heard of the book and the movie now, 12 Years a Slave. Well, this is Henry C. Bruce's autobiography, 29 Years a Slave, 29 Years a Freeman, by Grandmaster Henry C. Bruce. And again, the Masonic, and again, I'm in contact with their family members.
You see what I'm saying? All these Masons writing these books, coming up with these stories. You got this nigga, he a grandmaster, 12 years a slave ass nigga. You got Frederick Douglass, narrative of a slave ass nigga. You see what I'm saying? All these slave narratives is coming from Masons. I mean, hey, bro, I just showed you that nobody's believing these niggas. These niggas with these funny degrees and all these extra degrees. Where you coming from with all these extra degrees? Boston.
Discussing some of the stuff with them and some of the items that they have, and they were totally oblivious almost, because Grandmaster Bruce doesn't write any of this stuff down. He was a Mason, Grandmaster. He doesn't write any of this in his autobiography.
But crypto shit. See how a nigga be part of a motherfucking conspiracy and don't tell you. He don't put that in 12 years a slave that he like, you know what I mean? You just said that if you're a Mason, you getting away, right? Like a lot. That's what I'm saying. You got that Underground Railroad shit. A lot of that what niggas be saying is that's right. That's crypto shit. Niggas that act like a slave just to get up in there and then be disgruntled to make niggas want to run away. Go be a slave just to get niggas to run away. Just to start some trouble, just to fuck up the economy, just so you could come with this Boston shit and messed up the South. Because niggas don't want to play these funny games with this new Mason shit.
In researching the family, we found that not only was he a Mason, but so was Blanche Bruce. They had another brother, J.J. Bruce, who was Grand Treasurer in Missouri. Another brother who was Grand this, Grand that. All the siblings, all the male siblings, were high-ranking Prince Hall Masons and active civil servants. And last but not least,
and active civil service. I ain't mad at you though. I mean, it's just a conspiracy ass family and shit. You know what I mean? They in too deep.
So I'm finishing with John T. Costin.
And like I'm telling y'all, like I said, it's just a trick that them niggas acting like they can't fuck with the white boys. They hating on white boys. They all brothers. They started out together. We just gotta build this separation. We gotta act separate. We need black, white water fountains. We're gonna have this black and white checkerboard. We're gonna create all this division and chaos. This is the foreign twist.
Who again was pointed out earlier, he was actually the son of Brother William C. Costin, making him a great grandson of First Lady Martha Custis Washington. He served on the committee we heard about earlier that went to see President Lincoln. But he also worked with the Freedmen's Bureau. He helped rewrite the Georgia State Constitution after he served in that capacity. Grand Master in the District of Columbia. He traveled south for a few years, but he would write back to the jurisdiction. And in a few weeks, we're actually having our annual session where we receive correspondence, letters, and official acts. And Grandmaster Costin, he wrote something very interesting that I'm going to leave you all with and to show the kind of integrity that these men had, but also the hidden hand that they had under the table, which was this.
He just said they got a hidden hand at the table. Now I'm gonna tell you this Georgia shit is important because Georgia is where they kicked these niggas out of. Georgia is where the Cherokees started. Georgia is what they tried to sell and niggas wasn't going for it. And they killed them and they sent them on their way. So whatever he's saying here, again, remind you that the whole Albert Pike shit started with these niggas that got kicked out. The whole Albert Pike shit, he went to Arkansas with these niggas that got kicked out from the South. That's what I showed y'all. That's what they talking about. That's the story. He got his training in Arkansas. Nigga he ain't go to these Prince Hall Masons and find out how to be a Mason. Why not? Why did he come for some niggas that just came from the South to find out how to be a true Mason? Why didn't he fuck with those Prince Hall Masons and get some juice from them niggas? Why he had to go all the way to Arkansas? It's a reason because
Grandmaster Costin would write his report from Macon, Georgia on July the 25th, 1867 to the Freedmen's Bureau. He'd write, "The Rebs cursed me terribly, some threatening to shoot me, but the only thing that occurred was I was spit upon by a rebel while passing him in the street. I took no notice of the insult, however, because there were nearly 2,000 colored persons in the place, and nearly every one of them had firearms." Now, I see some Grand Lodge officers in here today. I don't know if y'all want to go back to that rule or not, but I'm a firm believer, even though he doesn't put it in here, I'm a firm believer that when Grandmaster Costin arrived to South Carolina, arrived to Georgia, and he's meeting these fresh black soldiers, this is immediately after the Civil War is over, okay? I'm a firm believer that those brothers down there knew, some of them knew that was a Grand Master and nothing better happened. So with that, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
With that, thank you for your time. I'll wrap it up on this note, bro. Like, Hey man, you here to be free to make your own conclusions about the agents and the Civil War, but it all goes together. It all ties back. Everybody's saying it goes back to the Jacobins. It goes back to Boston. It goes back to these lodges. You know, man. Peace to the guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope this helped. See you guys tomorrow. We're gonna get messy in the morning like we always do. Don't you worry about a thing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I shall return.